Blessings. My name is Jonathan Haber. I'm envisioning an intensive training opportunity for you and anyone else, and I want to share with you a bit of the vision, some of the theoretical basis for the work that we're going to be doing together, and some of the elements that we'll be using and synthesizing in this offering. What I feel called to do is to co-create the world's most intensive, cutting-edge, poignant, and revolutionary training for supporting the emergence of leadership, supporting emergent leadership in the world in response to where we're at today. This training would be designed to support emerging leadership with the skills, practices, and distinctions called for to respond to the world as it is, respond to the simultaneous arising of a sustainable civilization, the Gaian Revolution, and to the simultaneous destruction of our life support system in a fashion such that our work for the world is enlivening and invigorating and nourishing to our mind, body, spirit, and fulfilling of our sense of calling, our sense of destiny, and can arise from our unique gifts and our unique capacity to contribute to the larger whole. Globally, we have evolved from what appears to be a bunch of stardust into this miracle of a self-reflexive, sentient being on this planet, capable of empathy and resonance and support, and capable of showing up for each other in a way that is, as far as we know, historically unprecedented. What inspires this is the work of the expressive arts therapy movement in San Francisco at CIIS, the work of the engaged Buddhist, deep ecology and systems theory scholar Joanna Macy in her work with activism and activists in cultivating our capacity to show up in warriorship, in Shambhala warriorship with compassion and insight as our weapons, and the cutting edge work on relating practices and how understanding distinctions in both human development and states of consciousness can be applied to cultivating our capacity to relate in a way such that we can allow ourselves to be more deeply felt, more deeply seen, more deeply known by ourselves and by others. What we can learn from Joanna Macy is that we've been through there's this historical context. We've been through an agrarian revolution. We were hunter-gatherers and we started planting crops, and we've been through a revolution of making settlements and planting crops, and then the advent of the steam engine triggered the beginning of the industrial civilization and an industrial revolution. And now there seems to be both a collapse of our biosphere by virtue of this industrial civilization and the ways of being, ways of relating that arise with it, and an emergence of a sustainable civilization. That shift from an industrial civilization to a sustainable civilization, Joanna Macy has been calling the Great Turning, the shift to a sustainable civilization. And I want to look at that with you a bit to provide some context for the training that I'd like to offer to you and the larger community and the world. So within the Great Turning, this shift, Joanna Macy points to three co-arising domains: shifts in consciousness, Gaian structures built to sustain life, and analysis of structures and systems built that erode the life-giving capacities of the earth, and holding actions, which are actions taken to slow the destruction of our biosphere. Specifically, I want to look at shifts in consciousness with you. And if we can zoom into that part of this, because that's a lot of the work that we're going to be doing is going to tie into that. Within shifts of consciousness, from Ken Wilber, in his application of integral theory, we learned that there's a difference between states of consciousness, which are ephemeral and changing, and there's contemplative practice to cultivate our states of consciousness, and stages of consciousness, which is this maturization of our awareness, this capacity to hold more in our awareness, to hold more nuance, to hold more subtlety, to take into account more of what is, and therefore to make contact with a more comprehensive view of what is. Now, if we take a systems view, a systems theory view of our global situation, part of what's arising is that there's and we can learn this from Joanna Macy also, that there's a block and a feedback loop. So every system, from a systems theory lens, every system adapts and evolves to change through its feedback loops. Feedback loop is a way in which a system gets information from its environment. And human beings have arisen out of this global biosphere and are an expression of it. And in that, there's a natural way in which the biosphere, just like a cell is meant to respond to a challenge to the overall system as a whole, the human body as a whole, by responding on behalf of the whole, what the whole needs. Human beings are naturally able to draw from that which is needed by our biosphere in response to what's needed. And the interruption of that is what we call apatheia or apathy or global apathy. It's a severance of the feedback loop, and it's a response to shutting down and turning away from what is. So Joanna Macy's work is really poignant at addressing that, and she does that in specific ways, and that's part of what I want to integrate into this work. Also, in regards to stages of consciousness, as we mature, we can understand stages of consciousness in one particular way. If we look at morality, there's an emphasis on egocentric needs, me getting my needs met, you getting your needs met, to sociocentric needs, which is it's a stage at which we prioritize the needs of our group or our family or our community or our nation, whatever we identify with as a group, right? To world-centric awareness, which is when we put the needs of humanity, of the biosphere, first. And there's a natural evolution that we can track, and developmental psychology shares this or teaches us this. At the second stage, there's skills and resources arise within our being for prioritizing what resonates with us and what's mutual. And that study of mutuality and resonance can be practiced and learned at any stage, from any stage. And it actually becomes really poignant and relevant in our desire to give our gift to the world, in our desire to share our gift for the benefit of others and for the benefit of the world. And what I've found is that the most profound trainings in my investigation of trainings available on this arise at the Integral Center through Decker Kunav and the staff here, and Aletheia is one of their workshops that I've immersed myself in. And it's an example. They've got a whole series of trainings on this. So I want this workshop to integrate Joanna Macy's work in the ways in which she goes about training activists to dispel apathy and come into a fluid expression of that which is needed on behalf of the world, that which is called for on behalf of the world. And I wanted to tie in the relational skills and capacities necessary to negotiate, to mediate, and to relate in a way such that everyone feels heard, felt, seen, such that connection and resonance and mutuality become the foundations of the ways that we relate, such that collaboration can arise in the face of difficulty and dissonance. And one of the other tools that I found that seems really poignant and powerful for me is it's the practice of interdisciplinary inquiry. It's what happens when we take one inquiry and allow ourselves to investigate the same inquiry through a series of distinct disciplines. This comes from California Institute of Integral Studies in their Expressive Arts Therapy program. The gentleman who was in charge of that program put on a workshop, and I got a experience of this. And it's profound. We took one inquiry. What would it take for me to come to bridge who it is that I'm being and who it is that I'm becoming? What would it take for me to bridge that? And we did that through movement, and then we took the same inquiry and took it through art, and then through writing, and then through crafting, poetry, and then back into movement. And for 3 days we did this, and the amount of depth enabled through the intersection of these different disciplines captured my attention. And so my vision for this training is that we cultivate what's called intersubjective awareness, which is our capacity to be with ourselves, to be present to ourselves, and to cultivate resonance with other beings. So it's an empathetic resonance, and that arises within this state of intersubjective awareness. It's what happens when I don't lose myself being present with you, and I don't lose you collapsing into myself, but I hold both at the same time. I want that to be a foundation here. And I want Joanna Macy's work to be a context here, and I want the interdisciplinary inquiry and being with a central inquiry, a central theme to be, I want these 3 pieces to come together. And what I'd like is that this become one of the most profound, cutting-edge workshop, intensive training workshops for supporting emerging leaders available on the planet, and I want it to be available in a very large way. I'd like to allow for global impact and for the impact of this work to be magnified. And frankly, I'm committed to getting out of my own way, which means that anytime somebody is sharper, better at delivering a particular piece of this content and available, I want to bring them in and have them deliver that. There's one other piece, which is the embodiment piece. Part of what arises captures my attention is that this somatic connection, the connection between our body and our psyche, appears to be relatively profound and far-reaching and relevant. And one of the challenges with learning new tools and learning new ways of seeing and encompassing, integrating worldviews that arises is that it can be really easy to apply them in our mind without fully embodying what it feels like to rest into them in our center and to express from them. So what I'd like to do is integrate coaching, spot coaching in the moment on what's happening in the body through these practices. And I want to bring the most cutting edge practices that I've found in each of these traditions together. And I want to bring those teachers and those facilitators and those coaches and those guides together also. I want to invite everybody to come together to provide one comprehensive training on supporting the emergence of leadership in times of change. So the context for this, I feel like, is set really well by the Awakening the Dreamer, Changing the Dream Symposium. And I want to follow that symposium all the way to the last question where they say, okay, how? How do we create this? Right? Because they touch on the world is there's a miracle here and there's a disaster here and we're dying here and we're arising into a sustainable civilization here. And then they say, how do we enact this change? And then when it comes to that point, I want to bring all of these tools together and address the arising of the emergence of leadership in this time. The last piece I want to speak to is in regards to navigating our states of consciousness. What I find in my own meditation and in my own practice is that I can actually get out of my own way in a very profound way. I can recognize what I'm resisting, recognize what I'm pushing out of the field of my awareness, and welcome that in a way that has me feeling unstoppable, ferocious, and capable of navigating anything, uninhibited by my questions about my capacity and uninhibited by my questions about my will. And so the practice that has tied the most of those distinct elements together for me is this practice that I think we can just call the holarchy of being. And I got the foundation of that from Decker Kunov and the intersubjectivity trainings. and have taken it and used it to integrate a lot of other tools, including psychosynthesis and coherence practices, and I want that to be a piece in this too. So what you get if you come, should you come, if you're trained in these areas, if you're willing to bring your tools, I would like to invite you to share with us what elements of this you would like to support in moving forward. And if you're a seeker or a healer or a facilitator or a coach or an activist or someone involved in service in some way, if you come, what I'd like for you is that you get an experience of what it takes to shift our resistance to what is into creative energy for moving forth in devotion of service, such that our service can fuel us. And for anyone that's out there, for you to come, I want everybody to get this sense of what it takes to really drop deeply into the immediacy of our experience while relating, and to walk away with a language for describing our immediate experience and exploring the impact of our interior terrains, my interior terrain, your interior terrain, and my thoughts, feelings, sensations, impulses, and yours, such that we can effortlessly allow space for resonance between us, for mutuality between us, for understanding to arise between us, so that there can be more connection, more of a sense of fulfillment, more collaboration in this arising. So what I'm envisioning as of right now is a couple of days of training, immersive training, and I want to bring as many of the founders of the traditions that I'm drawing from and the skilled facilitators and practitioners as from the traditions that we're drawing from together as possible for these 2 days. So 2 days of intensive training, and then on the third day, I want to switch to an open source format where you, as a participant, shift to a leadership role and you present something, or you teach something, or you bring something to the larger community. And we have a structure for that. So I want to invite you to be a part of this emerging vision. There is so much potential right now for us to enact our gifts, to bring our gifts to the world. I want to invite you to take an active role in aiding this particular vision in being the world's most comprehensive, most immersive, most profound, most relevant, most poignant training for supporting the emergence of leaders in the world. Thank you so much. Our vision is to launch this early 2015 at the Institute of Noetic Sciences, and we're just in the beginning stages. All of this is vision right now, but the curricula is, we've already got a template for the curricula, and we're going to start offering little pods of introduction for this. So please offer your feedback, help us sort this out, offer your gifts to this vision, and show up. Let people know about this and show up to this practice. It'd be an honor to see you and to share in this incredible adventure of allowing ourselves to be present for, supportive of, and to allow the emergence of a sustainable civilization that's socially just and environmentally harmonious, and in which humanity as a whole can drop into and rest into our capacity to be in resonance with each other, to be in alliance with each other, and to be in solidarity with each other.